Hello and welcome back to the What is Life Dude podcast, everybody. We are your hosts, Eric and Sarah.
Welcome back.
We are filming this episode, so if you're listening and you'd rather go watch us on our very comfy couch, record this episode, it will be on YouTube.
And we're going to try our best to continue recording, filming it, moving forward. It's funny because our shot looks very clean and cozy, but the entirety of our house outside of the shot is in complete disarray because we are packing for a move, which we talked about in the last episode.
Yep. Lots of boxes and everything, except for in this very carefully curated area that we're sitting in.
Yep.
Okay, so what is our topic today?
Okay, we are going to be discussing this concept of quote unquote doing to get. And this is a term that I heard on a podcast from someone named Pilar Lesko. And I don't know if she coined this term or just someone else did and she talks about it, but it really resonated with me. And it is essentially when you do something that you would rather not do in order to achieve an outcome that you do desire, and doing that thing because you don't think there's any other way to achieve that outcome, or because it just seems like the most probable way because you've seen someone else do it or someone else told you to do it.
And this is something that we've kind of, this mentality, we've kind of fallen victim to many times in different areas in our lives. And I think everyone does. You know, you were saying the quintessential example of this is are people who work 9-to-5 jobs that they don't really like their whole lives in hopes that one day they can retire and then they'll have their good life that they truly love.
They can do everything that they are wanting at some later point in the future. And as we all know, no day is really guaranteed to us. So I have been thinking a lot about this and how I can start to shift out of this mentality a little bit more every day. So we have a couple of very concrete examples that we have been kind of unpacking in our own lives. I'm all about examples, as you guys know. And maybe you can kind of apply this process to something that you are going through right now.
Yeah.
So the first example of something that I think a lot of people can relate to in terms of doing to get is doing some form of super strenuous cardio running in order to lose weight or achieve a specific physique goal. So we've talked about this on many episodes over the past several years. So maybe Eric can talk a little bit about his relationship with that.
Yeah. I mean, my relationship with exercise is, like most people's, is tenuous and difficult and emotionally taxing. I mean, not everyone, but I'm sure a lot of people listening and watching can relate to, that kind of feeling in relationship with exercise.
Right.
And yeah, so over the years, I've gone through periods where I'm like, I want to shed a few pounds. What could I start doing? And when it comes to exercise, my default had always been running. And sometimes I really liked it. And sometimes I really didn't like it, but did it anyway. Because it's the quote unquote best way to burn calories. It's the most efficient, right?
Yeah.
But it's also the most punishing on your body. And for some people, that would also mean it's punishing on your brain, right?
Right. I mean, if you guys have followed my journey, I've gone through bouts of running. I'll do couch to 5K occasionally. And I have always just really been trying to make myself enjoy it because I would hear other people rave about it and how great it was for their sanity, I guess, for their mental health. And when I wasn't getting that out of it, I assumed it was something wrong with me, something wrong with my approach to it. And that if I just kept doing it and pushing myself, eventually I'd understand what they meant.
And it's definitely true for some people, which is another big part of this whole conversation, is anything we talk about right now or in really any episode, it's we're talking about our experiences and kind of giving advice that we would have liked to follow, but it obviously doesn't ever go for everyone. I just kind of got tired of running and the punishing, feeling like I was punishing my body, myself for it, or with it, I guess. And some people love that. Like some people get the exact opposite out of that.
Right.
Like they really embrace the suck. Except, does it suck for them? It does the suck exist if they love it, right? But for me, it was existing. So I've kind of just been in this like, what do I do?
Right.
You know, do I just do it because it's great cardio?
So, okay, there's our example, and we want to kind of discuss this process for shifting out of that approach to accomplishing things, right? So, one of the first things we can do is kind of envision our desired outcome, and more importantly, envision the version of yourself who is living in that outcome. So in this case, visualizing your healthiest, fittest self. And what feeling states do you ideally want to be occupying as that person? What habits do you see that person having? What relationship with exercise does that person have in an ideal state? And at the end of all of this, right, if you're living it sustainably, do you want to be keeping up with a habit that makes you feel drained, something that you have to force yourself to do? And for most of us, all of us, dare I say, the answer is no, right? So instead, we're asking what beliefs, feelings, habits do we want to achieve? So we kind of applied that to Eric. So talk about that.
So for me, I mean, my ideal relationship with exercise, it's the same ideal for everything in my life, right? I want to be doing stuff that's satisfying and that's fun and kind of like emotionally or mentally stimulating. Right. And so I've kind of just been thinking like, how can I relate that to exercise, to cardio specifically? Because we've been lifting weights at the gym and that's just, for some reason, just feels good. It's just like, it's always been a fun thing for us, or at least it is right now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, how can I incorporate cardio that kind of hits all those points I just mentioned, right?
And for every given topic, right, if it's not exercise, you know, the things that you're desiring, like the values that you have, are going to be totally different. Because we noticed with Eric, fun is such an important thing for him. And it's not necessarily for me, which is why like I don't really like board games. I don't really like, watching movies. My main thing is I like to be learning something. So just be honest about what your actual values are. Try to release any like shame that you might have around them. Like it's okay to just want something to be fun, you know? And I feel like sometimes people, I think Western culture, especially American culture, like we really kind of glamorize, what's the word?
Just going through it.
Hard work. Like everything, like you don't deserve it unless it was difficult, you know? It's, you got to grind for it. And we really need to deprogram that and be okay with desiring fun, desiring ease, all of these things. Yeah.
No one really ever talks about this, right? It's all about like that hard work attitude. Right. And working hard is fine. Working hard is great. But you also need to allow yourself to enjoy things.
Right.
And yeah, I mean that's kind of the whole thing. And like with me and movies and having fun and everything, like I like meaningful things. I like learning things, but not as much as you, right? Like our
but you
balance
like learning
is,
fun things. That's the thing. Is like Eric likes he loves watching like animal documentaries. He just loves like little factoids. You know what I mean? Because they're fun and like stimulating for his brain.
Like we'll both enjoy watching Like we just watched Broadway Idiot, which is a documentary about how they turned the Green Day album American Idiot into a Broadway musical. And it was just this cool, super behind the scenes documentary. And we were both like fascinated. We both loved the album and we were both just fascinated by it. And it was like, wow, we learned stuff and we're so like creatively inspired. And we both liked that. But on the flip side, I'm like, can we go see Jurassic World Dominion when it comes out? Just because like, it's just fun.
Yeah.
Right. And that's something that I really do connect with and that you just don't.
Right.
Which is really hard for people to understand.
Right.
Because a lot of people, I would assume, or based on my experience with people, aren't like that.
Right. I definitely go into things with a very specific agenda. And that's another thing that I'm kind of learning to embrace too. Because it's just very easy to get in your head and kind of question, like, why do I like this thing? Like, maybe we can just accept, like, I like it. Yeah. And be okay with that.
And it took you a long time to realize, like, I don't like this.
Yeah.
Like, I don't just want to sit there and, you know, throughout the last few years, we've had a lot of nights where I watch some stupid movie because it makes me feel, I don't know, makes me feel satisfied. Just like end of the day, watch something silly, whatever. And Sarah's like reading a textbook next to me.
Yeah.
And it took me a while. It took me a while to not feel like guilty about it or like to feel shame. Like, do I always need to be like learning and processing and reading and stuff? And the answer is
nope.
No.
Yeah.
Some people do and some people don't, right? If it fulfills you, that's what you got to be doing.
Right. We talked about this also, and we'll go to the next point in a moment, but I just wanted to kind of call back to a previous episode where Eric started listening to audiobooks, or he started trying to read, and he started with the book Sapiens, which is like the history of man or something. It's nonfiction, and felt a lot of pressure to enjoy it because it was a popular book and like, oh, let's feel learned and all of that. And he eventually realized like he likes fiction. He likes fun. What do you like? Action, adventure, Jurassic Park, Hunger Games.
Yeah. I mean, I've read like Ready Player One and Jurassic Park, but like the last few books I've read are fiction books that are more about like life and life lessons. A book, one of them is A Man Called Uva. Right now I'm listening to The Midnight Library. And these are fiction books that I just enjoy because there's like a big story going on in my brain. But it's also making me think about life and existence.
Right.
So it is kind of a blend of those two things, but I'm not listening to them because I would feel guilty about listening to pure, just like fun fiction books. I'm doing it because I want to.
Exactly. So this whole process is about getting back into that very pure kind of frequency of I'm doing this because I want to.
It's so hard.
It is because there's so much conditioning. So back to this example of exercise that we're kind of working through. We were thinking about, well, where in your life is exercise kind of fun? And I don't know if we talked about this in the last episode or what, but we visited New York, and all of Eric's sisters have partners. And one day we went to the gym with, what do we call them? Brothers. One of them is actually a brother-in-law.
Right.
And one of them is
because some are married and some are not. But they're all basically brothers-in-law.
Right.
Yeah.
So we intended to go there. Eric was going to play a little bit of basketball with them at the gym and then come up and join me for like a lifting workout. Half
because I was like, yeah, we'll lift together. We go to the gym together. We're going to go to the gym after this together. And it's just like a thing we do together. Right. And also partially because my knee had been really sore. And I was like, I don't want to hurt myself playing with my boys because
my boys.
We've been playing for a long time, the three of us.
Oh yeah, that's another thing to mention.
Which part?
Like Eric has known both of these people for like many years.
7 and 10 years.
And is friends with them. And this was the first time we were seeing them in a year, maybe? Yeah.
And we are truly relentless when the three of us play. And I was like, I'm going to hurt myself if I play too much. And also, that's funny because we have notes. Like we like we have an outline, but we didn't talk about this in the outline, yet we both in the same moment was like, we got to talk about this. So yeah, I planned to just kind of like shoot around with them, and I was like, I don't want to hurt myself. I'll go up and work out after. And then my knee was feeling fine, and I was like, Sarah's not going to be mad at me. Like, we don't have that kind of relationship. She'd be like, you didn't come up to the weight room. So we played for literally 2 hours, and that was the thing.
Oh my God!
It was so fun because every time we play, it's so fun, and I must have burned somewhere around 1 billion calories because I was so sweaty and running around. It didn't feel like exercise.
And then I went down. Eric texted me. He was like, okay, we're finally ready to go. So I go down, and then he's like, actually, can we play for like 10 more minutes? And can you watch us?
Can you watch me hit these threes? And it's funny because it was me and Sarah, and then my 2 brothers-in-law. So it was like the 3 of us were like, we all have to ask Sarah for permission.
I was like, no, I fully expected this.
Yeah.
Because I've been around you guys playing basketball before, or even like tennis, right? Last time you were playing tennis.
Yeah. So yeah, that's
actually, that was 2 years ago. Whoops.
Really
Wait,
was.
that was 3 years ago. Oh my God. I've known these people for a long time
Sorry,
now.
what year is it? Where am I?
Okay. Right.
So that was the first example of being like, shit, I love playing basketball. And then we kind of got back, and we've just been, like I said, we've been going to the gym all the time, and I feel like I've been getting strong. And I'm like, meh, I want to kind of like trim it down a little bit, right? And I was like, but I rode my exercise bike like all fall and winter, and I kind of just don't want to anymore right now. And I was like, I don't want to run.
It's toasty in Colorado. When it's sunny, it's so toasty and dry.
So dry. I'm like, I don't want to push myself through running right now. And then we were like, oh, there is a park right down the street. I can just go play basketball by myself. Like, I don't even need my I mean, it would be great if my buddies were here, but they're not. So we just started doing it.
Right. And it's so funny because when we tell the story, it's like, duh, like play basketball. But I guarantee if you kind of examine the places where you're making yourself do something that you kind of hate doing, you know, in order to get something else, there's probably like a dozen other things you could be doing instead that might get you to that same goal in a more fun, more easeful way. And we just get so stuck in our loops. I think another thing about Western culture is we really value like discipline and consistency. And it's funny because that is true, but you also have to factor in what's going to be sustainable for you, you know? Yeah.
And I mean, it's not always pressure put on from society or people around you. I mean, I would hope no one like in your life is pressuring you to do any form of exercise over the other. But I mean, a lot of it just comes from yourself. Like for me, I'm like, oh, I used to be such a good runner, you know, and like in my brain, I wish I didn't think like this, but my brain is like, oh, like you were so skinny when you ran all the time, right? It's like such a toxic thought.
No, that's I've come from that place too. Like looking back and reminiscing, like looking at my photos and being like, wow, I looked really good.
What was I doing back then?
Yeah, exactly. Let's eat the same way. Let's exercise the same way. We're changing.
We're different.
We're getting older.
We're getting older.
We're falling apart.
We're getting old. But I mean, and the funniest part is that like when I go and play basketball, I'm literally doing the same exact thing I would be doing if I were going for a run. I'm running around on pavement, like listening to a book. But the context is just so different. Right. Because I'm also shooting a little orange ball into a basket.
Yeah.
And it's fun. It doesn't, and that's kind of what we're getting at, is that it doesn't feel like exercise while I'm doing it. It feels like exercise after I stop and I'm very sweaty and very tired.
And then he makes us go to the grocery store to get Beyond Burgers because that's the only thing he wants.
It's because every time, it's not always Beyond Burgers, but every time we play,
impossible sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes it's impossible. It's never a black bean burger. I mean, like vegan technology is just too
It's
easy.
lit.
It's way too lit. But for obvious reasons, I was going to say for some reasons, but for obvious reasons, whenever I'm playing, like food pops into my head like halfway through, and I like walk over to Sarah and I'm like, can we go get these ingredients and make this for dinner? I'm so hungry now. Mm-hmm. And also that's the other thing is that Sarah's been coming with me every time, and we bring our little like lawn chair, beach chair, like camping chair, and we just like throw it under a tree and she listens to a book.
I bring my iced tea in my little insulated can holder that Eric got me.
I mean, because part of it for me is I love being outside, and it just feels so nice to get fresh air for like an hour. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing for you, even though you're not playing basketball, you're just being outside at a park. Yeah. Just enjoying, not being inside.
Mm-hmm. So interestingly, well, not interestingly or surprisingly at all, ever since we kind of shifted our mindset, or Eric shifted his mindset to prioritize fun instead of weight loss, it's just become a natural part of our routine. It's not even a routine because we just go whenever we want. I was joking that I feel like I'm taking my dog to the park every day because he's like, I don't know.
I'm like, I have extra energy. Can we go to the park? Can we go to the park?
I'm like, he's going to sleep well tonight.
But it's funny because it's like, I don't know. You also, like I said, you come with me because it's also emotionally beneficial for you to, so I'm like, I don't feel like I'm dragging you.
No, you're not.
Because I could go by myself, but I'm like, I don't feel like I'm dragging you because I know you always enjoy it too.
Being outside is truly the best thing.
Yeah.
And everyone says it. And I never got it. I truly never got it because I was always making myself go outside to do like difficult hikes and stuff. And, there was a time, that's another thing. That's an exercise thing that I was like, wow, when I was hiking all the time, I looked hot.
I looked hot. Sorry, I had to adjust my my seat here because my right leg is 1,000% asleep from sitting on it this whole time.
Oh, no.
So that's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's one of those things where it's like living in Colorado, that's like a societal pressure to go hike because everyone's like, oh, you live in Colorado, like, you got to hike,
right?
And
I'm like, no, I'm going to sit under a tree and drink an Arnold Palmer. Thanks.
And that's good for you because this is not going to be scientific. It reduces your cortisol or something.
Arnold Palmer.
Yeah, Arnold Palmer does. It has anti-stress benefits.
Okay, so I created a little bit of an outline to keep us on track before we started filming this. And we talked for a lot longer on the last couple of points than I expected. So I just kind of want to breeze through this kind of second, very common example of doing to get. And it's to do with diet. Mm-hmm. I feel like there's just so much, people are just kind of messed up with health.
Yep. Like
just a lot of conditioning.
All of us.
And yeah. So people who believe they have to diet in a really specific way, in a way that they've seen someone else find success with, whatever your measure of success is. People who think they have to cut out all the foods they like, think they have to eat healthy foods, quote unquote, healthy foods that they hate.
You mean like salad for every meal?
Right. Yeah. Kale all the time. Well, I love kale, but I think a lot of people hate the flavor of kale. Mm-hmm. They're wrong, but they don't have to eat kale, and they shouldn't have to eat kale.
Let them eat kale.
So then just applying the same line of questioning, if you envision your ideal, healthiest self, like what kind of relationship with food do you actually want to have? Do you want it to feel constricted and limiting? Do you want to feel like you don't trust yourself? Do you want to view food as like strictly utilitarian? Or do you want it to be fun and comforting? I mean, food has so much emotion and culture and so many things wrapped up in it,
Oh boy, do I.
Yeah.
I come from an emotionally emotional eating family. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do know what you mean.
Yes. So, or does your ideal healthiest self at the other end of this process enjoy food? Like, can you enjoy food? That's really important, right? Because nothing's sustainable if it's not enjoyable.
Right. Like, are you
long
not
term.
Like, are you not eating every meal thinking about how good or bad it is for you?
Right.
Yeah.
You want to cultivate ease around eating. You want to trust yourself to eat things in moderation and enjoy the things that you enjoy. So I feel like so many people like in the vegan community are like traumatized by the earlier days, like 2015-ish, because a lot of us found like vegan YouTube through the high carb, low fat, like high fruit movement where people were cutting out all forms of fat, like no oil, no avocados, no nuts, like also not too much protein either. They were like very strict about the macronutrient ratios, and you had to do like 80% of your calories from carbs. And we would see these people like creating content about how they achieve their ideal physique eating this way. And we were like, yeah, I'll do that too. And it's like, well, do you like large fruit smoothies? Do you like plain potatoes with no oil, like no butter, no anything? And I had just spent like a few years eating in a way that was like actually kind of repulsive to me to achieve this physique. And it didn't even work, you know? And it wasn't enjoyable. And I wasn't able to eat any of the things I liked. I love avocados.
They're avocados.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
So, yeah, that's just another kind of common example, I think. It's just about finding like how you actually want to feel on the other end of that. And then importing, like kind of considering where you're already feeling that. Because so many types of food to choose from. There are so many types of healthy food to choose from. You don't need to eat kale if you know you like broccoli, if you know you like peppers. Just like find something that is actually good to you and do it more, you know?
Well, I remember, I mean, I've told you this many times, but I remember years ago when I was going through this like cutting phase, right? Where I was just trying to like lose as much fat as possible, right? And let my muscles shine through, right? That's what cutting is, right? And I just remember I was like having such a hard time like losing fat. And I was just like restricting, I was like really watching what I ate. I was like counting every calorie and macro. And it was really stressing me out. It was just really stressful for me. And I remember I was at work and I was talking to my former coworker, Brittany, and she's someone who doesn't work out, doesn't really care about what she eats. She's just like one of those free spirit people. She just like loves having fun. She just like never worries about any of that. She's like, I don't care.
Right.
The exact opposite of me, basically. And I was just like griping to her at work. I was just like, I'm doing all these things like quote unquote right. Like, why aren't I, you know? And she's like, Eric, you are so stressed about this. Like, obviously you're not going to lose weight. Like, you're so stressed all the time because you're like, I have to eat half of this protein bar now and half in 37 minutes. And
Cool.
And I was like, what do you know? And now I'm like, oh yeah, she's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So I wanted to kind of like write out some formal steps that you can kind of apply to your own situation. And we want to bring in one last example that is to do with music and Eric's like relationship with music. Shall we just get into it?
I think we should. Let me flip the page on my notes because I accidentally printed my copy not two-sided.
Right.
Annoying. Yeah. So
you pick a topic that is kind of coming up for you, something that is making you feel like, is it worth it? Is this really worth it?
Yeah.
So maybe you can introduce the topic.
Yeah. My name is Eric and I play music. I think I've just been trying to find like the right way to do it.
As a career.
As a career.
Preferably.
Thank you. Yeah. There's so many like layers and levels. I mean, when I was a kid, I asked my dad for drums because I wanted to play Green Day songs. And I just always have just played for fun. And I was always so inspired to make stuff and just like record terrible quality songs like on my dad's old laptop. And I just was just always doing it. And then kind of over the last like 2 years, I've just been trying to figure out how to make it a career, right? And I've gone through all these things like doing freelance music, like making theme songs for people and doing like theme songs and jingles. And I started teaching lessons, like music production lessons.
Oh, you were teaching little chitlins, little kids,
yeah.
Music lessons too, back
Yeah.
in, 2020? That was cute.
Yeah, over Zoom.
Yeah.
It's really interesting to try to coordinate Zoom full of children, but it was fine. So I guess I've just been thinking recently, like, what is the best course? Like, what do I actually like the most? What is the most fulfilling? What is the least draining? And what makes me feel still most like a musician?
Right.
And not like someone who stopped trying to be a musician in order to like kind of have music be their career. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And there's so many ways to achieve that if your only goal is to get paid to make music. Like if that's it, like there's endless ways to do that, right? And it's very easy to kind of be, what's the word? Like tempted by temptations.
We can't even explain that right now.
Right. It's a jingle that Eric made. Anyway,
Continue.
tempted by someone else's path to success, basically. You see someone else and you like their work, you admire their work, or you see their lifestyle, some piece of their lifestyle, and you're like, that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
And you just get stuck on that.
Yeah, because I mean, this is the whole point of the episode and what we were talking about at the beginning, which is, you're like, well, if I take this route, I'm going to get to successful working musician much faster or much more easily.
Right.
But what they don't tell you is that you're going to become frustrated and not happy with it. And it's going to get in the way of getting to the end because you don't want to be doing it.
Right. So let's go with a specific example here is Eric has been like kind of toying with for years the idea of making little comedy songs, little, not parodies.
Maybe whatever, just some sort of funny songs. Yeah.
Has made a few, enjoyed it, but it wasn't rewarding enough to continue doing it. And now both of us are on TikTok a little bit more, and he's getting served all of these little comedy jingles.
Yeah, basically I just said to Sarah recently, I was like, I think I'm going to start like making, I mean, it makes sense, right? From like a logical standpoint. How I presented it to Sarah was like, I think I want to make like short comedy songs. It's TikTok, 1 minute, right? I mean, I know they can be longer, but people like 1 minute still. And I'm like, what am I good at, babe? I'm good at making catchy songs. I'm good at making people laugh. Like, why don't I combine those two things? And Sarah's like, okay.
Okay.
But basically just over time, over the last few weeks, we've just been having discussions about it. And Sarah's been asking me like, why? Like, why
Like,
do you want to,
but like,
what are you hoping to get out of it?
it's not that you need to justify everything that you do. Like once going back to what we were saying earlier, like if something is fun for you, you don't need to justify it being fun. But I was asking why, because he wasn't doing it. You know what I mean? For several years, it's been an option on the table and he hasn't felt intrinsically motivated to do it. So I was just
why now?
asking like, why?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So this brings us to the first step in this process after you kind of defined what topic you're digging into, which is to examine your beliefs.
right. And Sarah was like, think about it. Like, what do you believe about this situation, right? That you're telling yourself. And I'm like, well, people really like funny songs. So if I can make a bunch of funny songs, people will follow me and they'll like me. And then, they'll listen to our stuff because they'll know me or my stuff, whatever. And Sarah's like, okay, so your goal is to write serious music, right? Just like normal, regular, non-comedy songs. And I was like, well, yeah, eventually. I'm like, but I could definitely like get people on board with writing funny songs. And Sarah's like, why don't you just make like the quote unquote real songs, right? Like the non-comedy songs. I'm like, because I don't think anyone's going to watch them. And Sarah's like, why? And I was like, I don't know. And that's where I kind of got stuck. Like you kept pushing and pushing and pushing.
Right.
And finally I was like, I don't have an answer.
Right.
I don't have an answer.
So what you want to be doing is examining your beliefs as to why you think that you can't achieve something the way you actually prefer to achieve it. Why you think you have to jump through all of these hoops to get to your desired outcome.
And part of the answer was because I like comedy songs, I watch them, and therefore I get recommended more of them. And I said to you, I was like, well, I never get songs. My example was like, no one's going to listen to a song about me being like, oh, I had cancer and here it was hard and this was my experience. I'm like, but if people knew me, they'd be like, oh my God, Eric had cancer and he's like singing his heart out about it. I'm like, but if no one like knows who I am, like they're not going to like care about that. Like, so I have to hook them, like I said before, with something that's more relatable, like a comedy song about Jeff Bezos, right? Shout out Bo Burnham.
Right.
And Sarah was like, I get recommended like serious music videos all the time on TikTok.
Right. It's just like people in front of their phone camera with a guitar, like no effects, no editing with the lyrics.
And my response was, what? You do? I'm like, I never get that.
Right.
And Sarah's like, yeah, because you watch comedy stuff. And I'm sure I'll get one now because my phone is like, I can hear you.
Singer-songwriters?
Did someone say emotional music about cancer survival? But yeah, I mean, my experience was that just doesn't exist as a popular thing on social media.
Yeah. So when
My
you're
experience
examining,
was limited.
Yeah, you're examining your beliefs. Ask if they're actually true, and can you find some counterexamples? You know.
And also, if you're having trouble figuring this out yourself, talk to people. Talk to your friends and family about it.
Right.
Even if you're not asking them specifically, like, will you help me decode the beliefs that are rooted inside of me?
Right.
Just having conversations kind of about broader topics might unveil some things to you. Luckily, I have Sarah, who's just like, and just like pulling things out of my brain all the time.
Right.
And yeah, so thank you.
So what's the next thing?
The next step is to visualize your ideal relationship with whatever the thing is that we're talking about.
All right.
So like I said before, I like playing music. And I'm like, well, I want my ideal relationship with music to be fun. It's exactly like the basketball thing, right? I want my relationship with everything I do in life to just be like fun and like to feel like a kid, right? Because when I'm playing basketball, I'm just like, I feel like I'm running around with my neighborhood friends as a child, just like, wee, Doesn't feel like work, like exercise. And the same thing with music. Like, I don't like feeling like making or playing music is work that needs to get done. I want to just fucking play because that's what I'm supposed to be doing. I grew up doing that. That's why I fell in love with playing music. So my ideal relationship would be it's fun. And another part of it is I want people to care about what I'm making and what I have to say through the music. And yeah.
And we realize another thing that Eric really values is music, the type of music he's playing or practicing, making him a better musician.
Yeah. I do like that. I like to be mentally stimulated by things, right? So music that's like kind of difficult, right? I like to be challenged by it and figure things out so I can, you joked about how I always do this, but I'll like text my dad. I'm like, can I FaceTime you? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, I like put my phone down like so we can see the keyboard, and I'm like, listen to this thing like from this song. Like, how cool is this chord change? And like, there's this weird chord I didn't know before, and I learned it. My dad's like, well, cool. I mean, my dad's a musician. He knows what I'm talking about. But it's the same thing I would do when I was a kid. Like, I would go downstairs and like learn a thing on drums, and I'd come up and I'd be like, Dad, listen to this.
Dad!
Yeah. And he's like, I'm literally working to feed you. Can you leave me alone? So that's part of, it's all kind of the same thing. It's fun. I like being challenged, and I kind of feel better on the other side.
Right. Okay, so steps 1 and 2 we've gone through. 1, examine your beliefs, question them. 2, what's your ideal relationship with this thing? And 3, again, where in your life are you already kind of experiencing the things, the feelings that you're desiring? So we looked at that with music.
Yeah. I didn't know if you wanted me to go.
Go ahead.
So basically what we've been doing, when we went to New York a few weeks ago, we saw Hamilton on Broadway. I can't believe that's real. Like, can you believe we did that?
We did what?
We saw Hamilton on Broadway.
We did?
We
We
did.
were in New York.
You were there. You were drunk on vegan sushi. I think that's why. It feels like a good dream. But we were just so inspired by the Broadway performance, and we came home and we like went on an official website and like bought a bunch of like official sheet music for songs from Hamilton, songs from Rent, songs from Wicked. And that's what we've been playing, because those are the things that are speaking to us. And you can kind of put that up, you can juxtapose that with
When we were making ourselves do pop covers.
because we thought that is what would give us the best chance to be successful.
Right.
What songs do people want to hear? Right? Sorry. And it turns out there are people who want to hear everything. So there are people who want to hear you cover a Dua Lipa song, but there are also people who want to hear you cover a song from Rent or Hamilton.
Right.
And we're not gonna connect with the people who want to hear a pop song if we're just doing a pop song because we think those people will like it.
Right.
They can tell.
Yeah.
You can tell when someone doesn't give a shit.
Right. Even if it's like subconscious, I feel like everything's just like vibes, you know?
It
And it
is.
comes through. And yeah, so that touches on the, like, it's fun. It's been fun for him to play. The second thing is people care about what I have to say, was the other thing he was trying to achieve. Yeah, so it really does come down to your vibes and how much confidence you have in what you're delivering. And I feel like if you have enough conviction in what you're putting out there, you can find an audience for it, you know? We had a funny example.
Yeah, the best example is like 2 years ago when the filmed version of Hamilton live on Broadway came out on Disney Plus.
Not a sponsor.
Not a sponsor. Well, I mean, not yet. So when that came out, my whole family who lives in New York, they've all seen it. Like, just they saw it when it came out, and I didn't get to see it. And
On Broadway.
on Broadway,
That's when they saw it.
They went into the city and saw it. Yeah. So they were like, you have to watch the recording. Also, the funniest part about us talking about this is our friend is coming over tonight, and it's probably the last time we're going to see him before we leave Colorado, but I'm forcing him to watch the filmed recording of Hamilton because I just know he's a musician also, and I just know I really think it's going to inspire him and he's going to love it. So I'm just kind of like making him come over and sit down and watch it.
Right.
So it's just funny that we're talking about that exact thing right now.
All roads lead to Hamilton.
All roads lead to Hamilton. So what I'm trying to say is that after we watched it, I went on YouTube and started watching all these like Hamilton related things. And something that came up, which was popular many, many years ago, is this video of Lin-Manuel Miranda, the creator of Hamilton. He's like been in the theater world for a while now, and kind of before Hamilton, like people knew who he was because he had another musical in the Heights, and he's also very vocal in like politics and things like that. So he was invited to the White House under the Obama administration, and they asked him to perform. I'm not sure what they asked him to perform, but he basically said, he's like, I'm going to do something different tonight. And like, the Obamas are there and all these like famous people and politicians, whatever, are watching.
And this was years before Hamilton existed.
Like,
This is in the process of him writing Hamilton still.
so Hamilton came out on Broadway in 2015,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he started working on it in like 2009 or 2010. It was a long road. So at the very beginning of this road, it wasn't even a musical yet in his mind, but it was like a concept album. He was going to call it the Hamilton mixtape. And it was just going to be like a little concept album about Alexander Hamilton. So he went up on stage by himself with a keyboard accompanist, and he was like, I'm going to do something different. I'm working on an album about somebody who I think embodies like the soul of hip hop. First Treasury Secretary Alexander Hamilton. And everyone burst into like, Obama was like, ha ha ha, ha, you know? And he's like, yeah, but I'm serious. And I was like, okay. So he started rapping. He started singing Alexander Hamilton, like the first song. And he's doing all the parts.
Yeah.
And he's just by himself with a microphone. And he just like keeps saying these things that are now like extremely famous. How does a bastard orphan, like people know every word and every line now. And as soon as he did like the whole 6-minute thing by himself, and everyone's laughing the whole time.
Right.
Like the Obamas, the celebrities, the politicians, they're all cracking up because they're like, this dude's rapping about Alexander Hamilton.
And he's not laughing.
He's
by the
completely
way.
serious. Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, in retrospect, like I said, it's amazing because it's like, well, he believed
Yeah.
in this thing, and now it's the biggest musical that's ever existed, potentially. Maybe.
Time will tell.
Time will tell. It's massive. And everyone was just laughing at him throughout this whole performance because he thought he was like doing a joke kind of thing.
Right.
But he believed in it the whole time, and look where it is now.
Right. So, I mean, this kind of touches on the third belief that we examined earlier on in the process, which is like, I can't get people to care about the things I really want to say. I have to kind of lure them in through the back door. I have to lure them in with comedy. And it like, this is just such a clear example of like, you could make anything interesting. Like, who cares about Alexander Hamilton? Now they do, you know?
But the funniest part is that like we also don't care about Alexander Hamilton still. It's like not the reason we like the story, but he was able to tell it in a way where it's like, it's technically about all these founding fathers, but it's mostly a story about like people.
Yeah.
Like regardless of who they are historically.
Right.
Right. And he was just able to tell the story in a touching way. And like what I said to you earlier, I was like, people aren't going to care about a song about a random guy who's talking about his experience having cancer. It's not like broad enough, I guess. It's not enough for like like a large group of people to latch onto.
Right.
And you were like, do you know how many people either had cancer or have a loved one who was affected by it? Like most people.
Right.
And I was like, I didn't even consider that.
Yeah. If you guys know the YouTubers Eamon and Beck, I think they do like van life or tiny home stuff. I'm not sure. I wasn't really familiar with them at all until she started to vlog about her cancer journey earlier this year. And cancer is affected my life. So I was like, I'll like tune into this. So I've been following all of her vlogs and feeling very moved by them. And the other day she had released a new one. And I asked Eric if I could just put it on because he hasn't been watching them with me. Then he started watching with me. And like it just goes to show that really whatever you are feeling, there are dozens of us. There's probably so many other people who are going through that and processing it and could benefit from you kind of turning it into something beautiful. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
And it doesn't have to be a topic like, I'm afraid to go to the store because COVID is 2 years old. And everyone's like, ha ha ha, I know what COVID is too.
Right.
Like it doesn't need to be that big.
Yeah.
Yeah. That ubiquitous. So what's the last point?
We've kind of already
last
gotten into it, but yeah, it's just to kind of give yourself very radical permission to put more energy into those areas of your life where you're already experiencing that feeling you're seeking out. So It's kind of learning to silence the voice that's saying, no, do it this way, do it this way, do it this way. And being like, no, this is fun for me. This is satisfying for me. This feels good to me. And like, I'm going to do more of it, you know?
And the way it's playing out for us specifically is, you know, like I said, we've bought the sheet music for all of these Broadway songs, but the one that we've really latched onto is I'll Cover You, which is a duet from the show Rent. And we've been singing it every single day, and we started recording it because we were like, let's do a legit cover like we usually do, except instead of going into the whole process with like, we're going to learn the song, we're going to get good at it, we're going to record it, we're going to put it out, and people are going to like it because they like this song. We said, we like this song. We like singing this song together. It feels really good to work on it because we're both getting better at singing, and I'm getting better at like figuring music out. Mm-hmm. And we keep doing it. And because of that, it's the best we've ever sounded on a song. Is it not?
Mm-hmm. And like, we didn't come into it trying to think of, oh, how can we make this more palatable for the widest audience? It's like, do you know how many people love Broadway music? Like, so many people. It's an entire industry, obviously. Yeah. So, yeah, just questioning our beliefs about that.
And another example, which we haven't even talked about because we kind of weren't doing the podcast when this came out, but we did this TikTok video. It's a YouTube video, but hold on. Let me, okay. We had this idea to do what if Phoebe Bridgers had written All Star by Smash Mouth. And we didn't have this idea for anyone other than us. I mean, as we were coming up with it, we were like, people think this is funny.
It was just it was just a joke originally.
Right. And we thought it was funny.
Yeah.
We weren't like just thinking people will find this funny. We were like, this is fucking funny to us, so let's make it. So we recorded the entire song. We made a whole video. We put so much time and energy into it because, well, we wanted to see the finished product. Mm-hmm. And then we posted a bunch of clips on TikTok, and one of them now has 200,000 views. Like,
also, Phoebe Bridgers commented on it.
Yeah, she like sneakily liked it.
Oh, liked it.
I was just like, I opened up TikTok and like logged into our account after like weeks of not checking. Mm-hmm. And I was just scrolling through all the people who liked the video, and it was like Phoebe Bridgers 69 liked your video. And I was like, that's Phoebe Bridgers. That's her. Yeah.
And then she sent us a cease and desist. So that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. She knocked on our door and she threatened us. She's like a very tiny woman by herself. Yeah. So, yeah, that's just another example of us just like, let's just do this thing because we want to do it. Mm-hmm. And it ended up being great because we cared. And look at that. It got the biggest response than anything we've ever made.
Right. Similarly with many, many years ago, before I was getting paid to do YouTube, and I just made a video about testing vegan smoked salmon recipes. Smoked salmon made out of carrots. Thinking like, okay, like if 10 people will watch this is not of any relevance to anyone really. And that's like one of my most viewed videos now.
Yep. And that kind of jump-started the whole Sarah's Vegan Kitchen.
Because I was genuinely curious and I wanted to document it, you know? So come at things from a pure perspective, from a pure space of, I want to enjoy this. I want to enjoy the journey. Yep. It's the climb.
We have been enjoying the journey. Yes, it is the climb, honey. All right. Well, is that everything?
I think so.
Okay.
Any logistical things you would like to say?
There are a few. Thank you so much for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, please feel free to, do I say smash that like button? Smash that like button, as the people say. Hit subscribe. We will be trying to film them again from now on. And regardless of where you're watching or listening, if you could go to the iTunes store and look up our podcast and give us a preferably a 5-star review, that would be cool. You can, or you don't have to leave a little comment with that, but it just helps. It helps the algorithm or something. It helps us.
Something.
Yeah. And I think those are all the things that we'll ask you for. Yeah? Okay. Well, thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.
And we will talk to you next time.
Adios.
Bye.